Welcome back to the MJ Freeway Pennsylvania webinar series. Today, we're going over remediated topicals, stability testing, and caregiver sync. If you have any questions, there should be a box on the right side of your screen. I apologize if it's not. We'll be able to field any questions you have. If you have any questions following this webinar, please feel free to reach out to us. We'll be happy to take care of you. And with that, Seth, are you ready?
All right. Okay, welcome everyone. So as Andrea said, caregiver sync will do last, stability will do second to last. Those two are pretty quick. The first one is the larger workflow. It's just got a bunch of steps to it, remediated topicals. And so as a lot of you know, we have the ability to one-off enable functionality through our feature toggles. So this is a production site that has remediated topicals enabled, but it's the only one out there. So the couple differences you see in this site will not exist until next week. And Monday morning, I'm going to toggle on or enable the remediated topicals in the caregiver sync. And so those are just enablements versus like they're not code releases. We've tested these a whole bunch. Now, when you have remediated topicals enabled on your site, what first thing you'll see automatically in the category section is there will be a new subcategory. So there will be remediated topicals under infused non-edibles. So this subcategory will come up. Of course, you'll have no products in it, but as soon as you create products, then you'll be able to create assemblies that have remediated topical products on them with previously failed cannabis. So we'll look at a case where we're at the E&I now, where all the processing for remediated topicals would come over. And there's several kind of unique guardrails and workflows we put into place here so that we can do this, because the idea is you'll have failed inventory. So this bulk inventory test is failed flower. And this will then get processed into a concentrate. Then that concentrate will go to the lab. If that passes testing, then that concentrate can be made into only remediated topicals, because that'll be remediated concentrate versus like, first time passing concentrate. So another one of the guardrails is we're allowed to now process. So I can start a process with the remediated topicals. And I believe I actually have one of these going just to speed up a little bit. Okay, so we're going to complete this process. This is with that bulk inventory test. If we looked at the test results, this would be the failing test results. And so we're going to turn this into oil. So just a basic extraction. This will maybe make, we're not going to use all of it. We'll keep it in pre-run. And then we'll save it. All right, so we put that into 13 dogs oil. And when we go back to the inventory, we'll see that we have 13 dogs oil. Now, there's not a danger of anything besides the only workflow we can do happening to this, meaning that has inherited the failed test results. This is just a guardrail to make sure that this doesn't turn out and get like look in the system like it's just normally processed flour into oil, which of course would have no test results until it's tested. But the only thing this one can do is go from failed to remediated now. And so what the lab side sees, and we'll just look at this really quickly. So we would do a transfer of that concentrate to the lab. $13 dogs oil. All right. And then our manifest and our transfer. And that failed flower, of course, can come from, and in this case, of course, did come from the grow, obviously. But this also allows failed flower to be transferred into the EI for this exact processing that we're doing. And the only thing that can happen is failed flower processing into failed concentrate. So that flower can't be packaged or, anything like that, just to make sure. So this is what we'll see for the operators soon, the auto generate thing where you'll be able to just bring stuff in without creating a purchase order. Labs have always had this so they can get tons of stuff in at once. We'll put this into a location. And we can actually show stability whenever, but we could show stability now. What we'll see here is there's a stability testing date. This is of course for the labs, but this allows them to track presumably when the next test would be needed stability wise. And then it's a stability test versus a standard. What we're doing here is remediation. So we're doing a remediation test, which if passes would still need to get a 6-month check. And now we'll just do the now we have passing concentrate. Now it's passing, but it knows the test type is now always remediated as it inherits through the system. And so we'll see that same thing over on the EI, our processing. And so now we no longer have failing 13 dogs. We have passed 13 dogs and we have passed 13 dogs remediation. So almost there. Now we just can turn this into our final remediated topicals product. And so, of course, I can do that by checking the box here and starting the assembly. In general, just for everybody to see, it's, the assembly has an output product. So the assembly is just many things making up one new thing. Bulk inventory plus some other stuff makes units. And so on the assemblies, when we create an assembly, you'll see I have this whole list of assemblies in here. And then any given assembly can have a name and then its output product. I just happen to have named things in the system. Like when I make a unit-based remediated product, topical, I put that in the name. But any assembly made with remediated topicals, this will be allowed into the rule set now. So what I'm going to do is actually copy this onto my clipboard, and I'm going to start an assembly with no packages so we can see the filtering right away on the screen. So right now I could run technically any assembly. I haven't picked the material from which I'm, creating the assembly, the bulk oil. Once I do that, the system knows that this is, I can look at the cannabinoids and everything, but it knows that it's a remediated topical. So now that's filtered my list down to only the 3 assemblies that have remediated topical products. Then I can make my remediated topicals and push it through. And then I have, one more test, final retail product to test, and then I can send it to the stores. And that's the remediated workflow, the remediated topicals workflow. Like we saw on the stability is just something you see whenever something has had a previous test. So like sometimes labs will see when they go to add a test result, they'll see 2 drop downs, 2 items in the drop down. They'll usually see standard and stability. And now that we have remediated in here, we can do any one of these test types. If it's a stability or a retest on the 6 month, and then we can put our date out there. And that's the stability stuff. Meaning reports, we might have James be making us some reports on, what stuff is coming up close to stability testing to our 6 month time or whatever time we've put in there based on the regs. Now, the last thing is the caregiver sync. So the caregiver sync is actually the shortest to show, but we'll talk about it a little bit. Those these other tabs. Okay. So a couple things here. Most of you saw when this work was being done because it caused the birth date field to be required for all the caregivers, for all caregiver check-ins. We have, Robin and I have talked to the state, received permission to revert that. Ideally they want birth date in there, but it is in the card. And so not in the next release, which is going to come out next week, it'll be back to how it was where you won't have birth date required to be typed in there or pasted in there for every single caregiver sale. And so what's going to happen here is we've all checked in tons of caregivers. Is there's no extra buttons. There's no extra anything to actually do. What it's doing right now, what the system is doing is calling the Oracle system, and then it's saying, okay, we have this caregiver. What patients in Oracle are with this caregiver? And so it's all about Oracle being the system of record. So we can see like we have other patients here who haven't been to this store yet, but are associated with this caregiver. So I could add them to the system. Just to kind of show you what we're looking at here, though, it's all about what's in Oracle. So on pulling this page, we've now updated or made sure updated all caregiver information on all these patients. As Miles and I have been talking about this also should resolve the issue that, sometimes we see where the caregivers are erroneously on profiles that pull up a bunch of patients and make it difficult to check in without a lot of support intervention. So we should see some resolution on both of those. And if we look at this, these are fake patients. This is the Oracle test registry. So it's all fake information. But what we'll see here is this caregiver information is the stuff that is being updated. So like I can go in here and just to kind of show it real time. Maybe this person's name changed somehow, their address changed, all that. All right, so that's Allison. And we can see this is all screwed up, all X's, all that stuff. Now, multi-tabbing, like we say not to do. Now from here, so Allison's profile is now incorrect. So if I tried to check her in, it would say, improper caregiver information. I'll simply hit this search button, which will relook everybody up. And this lookup process is also when the system is updating the caregiver information on the profile. So you don't have to hit a button. You don't have to get an error and go back anywhere. And we can see that by now just going into this page, and I'll just hit refresh. And all this information will now have been updated back to that original caregiver stuff that's from the test registry, 733 Montcrief or whatever. And then the medical ID, the card number, registry ID, and everything. So the caregiver sync is pretty invisible as far as steps to do, but you should not have to come back and manually update caregiver information on profiles. And this gets toggled on and feature enabled Monday, early morning at the same time that we'll be turning on the remediated topicals and the stability. So starting Monday, any feedback that you have on this would be great to let us know. And we're not, with the webinars coming at the end of the week, we don't want to touch as little as possible on, of course, Fridays. So we'll wait till Monday to turn it on, beginning of the day. And Andrea, do we have any questions?
Okay, I do have a question from Stacy. What about caregivers of children?
Well, the same workflow is in place as far as like they'd have to be in Oracle. And when that caregiver checks in, then that should pull up just like on our list here, that minor is somebody we can add to the system or then do a sale on behalf of.
And just for clarification there, Oracle is the state patient registry.
Okay, see, we had one question from Michelle. Can final flower failures or concentrate failures for butane be remediated? Miles popped in from our support team saying only failures from mycotoxins or yeast can be remediated. Then I have another question. Will the labs be assigning stability test dates?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, this is kind of a phase 1 of stability. Like the reporting and the triggers and the late notices, that isn't in the system at the moment. But the ability to put a date on stuff and then for us to pull it into a report, that's there. So I'm not sure procedurally what will come into play and when, but Robin and I will talk to the state about that, on our weekly call.
Okay, I think that's just about everything. So just as a reminder, this is a weekly webinar series, so please stay tuned. We also have some additional features. If you'd like to learn more, you can always reach out to our friend Robin. And with that, we will see you next Thursday for our next webinar.